Hey guys, welcome back. Today on the Untidy Artist, I'll be showing you how to make Princess Anna from Walt Disney's Frozen. Elsa and Anna are two of the most highly requested dolls that I've made. I made Elsa a couple of months ago. I had a lot of fun putting her together, and after a lot of trial and error, I figured out how to make Anna. There are a lot of really little details in this doll that make her unique. And I did spend a lot of time figuring out all of those details that make Anna, such as the beautiful white streak through her hair and all of the gorgeous details in her dress. So with that said, I'm excited to show you what I figured out, and let's go ahead and grab some supplies and get into it. If you've never made fairies with me before, you'll want to check out my basic fairy doll making tutorial. In that, I teach you how to take a piece of floral wire, a wooden bead, and some embroidery floss and twist it into a beautiful little doll. Now, I'll quickly be going through those steps in this tutorial, but if you've never made a fairy before, you'll want to check out that basic fairy doll tutorial. So I've got my floral wire, my wooden bead, and then I have my embroidery floss, a color for her skin, the red for her hair, and the white for the streak that goes through her hair. And then I have some embroidery floss for her clothing. So I've got some gold for the detail on her dress, some black, and then some really pretty turquoisey blue. You'll obviously need a flower. I have this really pretty blue flower that I found. I'll only be using 3 sections of this flower. We'll mostly be using the inside layers because they are closer to the color of Anna's dress. I have to say it was a little tricky finding a flower that matched the blue, but I felt like this one worked fairly well. I got it at Michael's and I'll put a link below. Hopefully they still have it in stock. You'll need some Mod Podge and a little tiny paintbrush to paint the detail on her dress. I have some glitter, a really pretty blue, some pink, and some green. I have some sharp scissors. And of course, I have my glue gun set on low. Using a dual temperature glue gun comes in really handy when you're making fairies because you have more time to work with the glue and you don't have to worry about burning yourself. Okay, let's get started. So the first step is obviously we're going to put together our doll. So I'm going to grab the red for her hair and I'm going to open it up. Once again, you'll find the basic fairy doll making instructions in my basic fairy doll tutorial. I'm just looping the floral wire through the thread, and then I'm going to take my wooden bead, thread that onto the floral wire. And before I push it all the way up to the top to start to twist my doll, we're going to add our white thread. So I measured out some thread to the length of my embroidery floss, and you can do anywhere from 4 to 6 layers. So I went back and forth a couple times. I've got 4 separate layers of the floss, and I'm going to leave it connected on one end because we'll be looping that through the floral wire, and then I cut it on the end so I can loop it through. So I'm taking my 2 pieces of embroidery floss, and when we fold that in half, it gives us our 4 strands of embroidery floss for the white section of her hair. And I'm going to keep it to the left side of my doll. I want to keep it on the side of where her hair is so that we can keep it on the one side of the part and add it to one of our braids. So then I'm going to go ahead and push my bead all the way to the top, and I'm going to twist my doll. Check out that basic fairy doll making tutorial for exact instructions on how to do that. And once I have her twisted together, I'm going to trim the end of her feet so that she doesn't have one leg that's longer than the other, just with a pair of wire cutters, and then I snip through the covered cloth that's on the floral wire. I use my scissors for that part. And then I'm going to go ahead and wrap her with the embroidery floss that we have for her skin. And once she's all wrapped, we're going to go back to her hair. So you'll want to smooth the embroidery floss as we go. Make sure that that white section stays on one side. And we are going to secure the bead to the embroidery floss. So I'm going to flip my doll to the back, push the bead down, put a dab of glue right at the top where the bead meets the floral wire and the embroidery floss, and then I'm going to push the bead up and that will secure the bead in place so it doesn't move up and down. And then I'm going to flip her back over to the front, and I'm going to smooth out that floss some more. That is key when doing the hair. I really feel like the hair is the hardest part, and if you just work slowly and smooth it out a lot, it'll work a lot easier. So once I have it smoothed down on both sides, I'm going to take a dab of glue and I'm going to tack down both sides of her hair. Notice I am leaving that white section out. We don't want to glue that down just yet. Now from here, you'll be following pretty much the tutorial on how to do a pigtail braided hairstyle for your doll. The trick is we've got to incorporate that white piece into it. So I've put a dab of glue on both sides, the left side and the right side. I'm going to put another small dab of glue right in the back. Tack that down a little bit, make sure it's all nice and smooth. You will find that braided pigtail hairstyle tutorial very helpful for this part. And then just like I do in that tutorial, I'm splitting it in half. You'll see that I've left the white section out. I'm going to take the side that had the white section and I'm going to have that be my underneath layer. And then I am taking the opposite section of hair over the top of that. So our white is still on the side, on the right side, and I'm going to incorporate that into the section that I just pulled over there. We want the white to be fluid all the way from the top of her hair, all the way down through her braid. So then I'm going to take the side that now doesn't have the white, and that is the side that I'm going to braid first. So refer back to that pigtail braided hairstyle. I just add a tiny dab of glue, braid the hair longer than you think you'll want it to be, and just put a little tiny dab of glue, or you can even tie it off. And then for the other side, I'm going to split that in 3, and I'm going to incorporate the white into the outer section for the braid. I found that it helped if you kind of twisted the white into the section of red for that portion of the braid, and then just work slowly. I like to start at the back, braid down a little bit, and then I'll flip her to the front to make sure I like how the braid looks. And this is obviously a part that you want to make sure your thread is really smooth, and I liked checking to make sure that the white was still showing in the front, so we can really get the effect of that white streak through her hair. Braid longer than you think you'll need, and then go ahead and add a little dab of glue to the bottom of that braid, and we're going to finish off her hair later. For now, we are done with the hair. So now go ahead, grab the blue that we have to dress our doll, and I'm going to give Anna long sleeves, a V-neck, and a little pair of shorts. You'll find more instructions on how to dress your doll on my basic fairy doll tutorial. You can see that I took the V-neck up very close around her neck because it almost looks like she has a collar on her dress, and so we wanted that blue to come really close to her neck. Then I'm going to do a V portion with the black. So we're just kind of putting a layer over the blue, and then go ahead and use that same black and give her a pair of shoes. So the black just goes over the blue at the top, comes down in a V, and then I just took that right to her waist and got her shoes. We're gonna set her aside and go ahead and grab your flower. Pull that apart. And like I said, I only ended up using the inside part of this flower, mostly because they were a little bit darker than the outer layers and they were the color that I wanted. I also really liked how this flower was shaped because it wasn't like really fluffy and full, but it did follow the same lines of Anna's dress. So I used the 2 inside layers that were the darker blue, and then I took one of those lighter blue outside layers, and that's what I used underneath. And once you have her skirt layered together the way that you'd like it, go ahead and take each section, fold it in half, and cut a little X right into the middle of each section of petals so that you can slide the petals up and around her waist. So I do that with every layer. And then starting with the top layers, I'm going to slide those up and around Anna's waist. And once we have them all up and around her waist, we're going to grab our glue gun and we are going to tack the skirt into place. What you'll want to do is use really small dabs of glue and arrange the skirt in a way that you like the way that it lays. So I find working slowly really helps in this part so that you get a nice pretty skirt that's laying the way that it should. And you're going to add glue in the front and in the back. And once her skirt is all put together, we are going to start to add some detail. So this is the part I spent a lot of time figuring out, or one of the parts. What you'll want to do is take your gold embroidery floss, put a small dab of glue on the back right at the end of the black portion that you've wrapped. So right at the end of her sleeve, and you're going to wrap that around 2 or 3 times. And then because this gold embroidery floss likes to spread out while you're working with it, I take some glue and I put the glue in a section of the embroidery floss so that when I wrap it around, that glue kind of holds it in place and it doesn't spread out as I'm working with it. So I wrapped it around 3 times, and then once I have it all wrapped around, I'm going to trim off the end, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. Now we need to add some to the very top of her dress. So I'm going to take this gold embroidery floss, and you can see how it splays out. We don't want it to do that. So I'm going to take a little section, I'm going to put a small dab of glue on it, and because I'm using a low temperature glue gun, my glue is not really hot. Please be careful on this part. If you're using a high temperature glue gun, you will want to wait quite a while before you try and twist it or touch it at all. But if I just give it a little twist and brush off the extra glue, what it does is it holds the end together, so I have a nice pointy end that I am working with instead of a whole bunch of splayed out sections of my embroidery floss. Then I'm going to take that, I'm going to put it right at the top of her dress, right where the V is. I'm going to take it up and over her shoulder, put a tiny dab of glue in the back and dab that down in the back, and just use my finger to kind of hold that in place until it sets. And that glue should help it so that the thread doesn't splay out and spread apart. And then I'm taking it up and over her shoulder, once again adding a little bit of glue. If I ever feel like the thread is starting to spread out too much, that glue will just hold everything together. So you can see I added a tiny dab of glue. I'm twisting it, letting it set for a second, and then brushing off any extra glue. And once again, if you're using a high temperature glue gun, be really careful on that part. My glue gun does not get really hot, and it allows me to work with the glue a lot easier. So just make sure that you're cautious on this part. Then you're going to take it to the back, or take it back to the front, right to where you started, right the V right at the front of her dress. And I'm going to take that down, tack it in place, and trim off the excess. One tricky thing with this doll is you get a lot of glue all over the black part of her dress, and the glue likes to show up. So my best friend in this tutorial turned out to be my hairdryer, because you can set your hairdryer, turn it on, and it will melt that glue so that you can't see it. So I trimmed off as much as I could, and then I took my hairdryer and used that to melt the glue in the front, and you can see it made a huge difference. Then I'm going to go to the back of her dress, right around the base of her skirt. I'm putting a small dab of glue right in the back, and I'm taking that gold around her waist, once again into a little V, just like we did up around the top of her dress, except this time we started in the back. So I kind of pinch it in the front so it goes into a V and follows the lines of her dress. Then I'm going to take it into the back, add a small dab of glue, hold that down until it sets, and I'm going to trim off the excess thread. Now, at this point, we've got our gold trim on her dress done, and before we do anything else on her dress, we're going to go back and finish off her hair. So I took a little piece of the same embroidery floss that I used for her hair, and I'm going to wrap that around the end of her hair. And I'm going to wrap it around a couple times so it's secure. You can always add a tiny dab of glue to the knot to make sure that it doesn't come undone. And then I'm going to trim off the ends of the braid And always trim them a little bit longer than you think you'll want them, because you can always go back and trim off more, but if you trim off too much, you'll be very sad and you don't want to do that. So you can see I'm just taking my scissors and I'm trimming off the end, and then I'm going to unbraid it. And I almost cut it too short on this part, so really be careful because you don't want to cut it so short that she's got funny looking braids. And I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. Now we have her hair kind of out of the way so that we can add the rest of the detail to her dress. So go ahead and grab the glitter and your Mod Podge and your teeny tiny paintbrush. And the easiest way I found to do this was to open up my Mod Podge container, and I actually just pour a little bit of the glue into the lid because I'm only using a tiny bit. And then I take that little paintbrush and I'm going to add two little kind of dots right at the top of her dress, right up by the V, by the gold top part of her dress. And I'm just adding a little kind of line up at the top there. And work slowly on this part. We will be adding a few different colors of glitter onto the top, so make sure you only get the glue where you want the pink glitter to go. Then I started out just dumping it directly from the container and decided that that wasn't a very smart idea. So I grabbed a piece of paper and I am just tapping the excess back into the lid. But you can see that that just gave us this little pop of pink up at the top of her dress. Then I put my pink glitter away and I'm going to grab my same paintbrush and add two little lines just below where our pink is at an angle, and these are going to be our little green leaves. You'll see, you can see here why using a small paintbrush works so well in this part. And then just sprinkling on that little bit of green. And you'll notice I'm just sprinkling it. I'm trying to sprinkle it exactly where I want it. We don't want the green to mix up into the pink that we put on the top. And we have the top detail on her dress. Now we're going to add some detail to her skirt. So I'm going to grab my pink again. This time I'm going to pour some of the pink in the lid of the container. I'm grabbing my brush and I'm going to paint at the base of her skirt almost what looks like a heart. So a little V. And I go over that a couple times to make sure I get a nice layer of glue for the glitter to stick onto. And then I'm just taking my fingers and I'm sprinkling a little tiny bit of that over that section, tapping it down a bit. And I'm going to do that all the way around her skirt. And what we're doing is mimicking the little flowers that are embroidered on the bottom of her dress. And once I have my pretty little flowers around the bottom of her skirt, I'm going to grab the light blue and we're going to add a little bit of detail with the blue. So I'm going to take my glue again, my tiny paintbrush, and I'm making a stem and some leaves. So I just take a little line down and from that do two little leaves out. So this is just the stem and our petals on our flower. And then I'm going to use my fingers, grab a little bit of that glitter, sprinkle it on the glue, tap it down a bit, tap the excess off, and I'm going to do that underneath each little pink flower around the bottom of her skirt. And you'll see I'm being really careful not to get the glitter colors mixed together. So I want to make sure that I'm only sprinkling that light blue glitter over the section I've just put the glue on, so that we're not getting our colors all mixed up. And now we have beautiful little flowers around the bottom of Anna's skirt. And that's it, guys. You are all set. We have just made Anna from Walt Disney's Frozen. So for all of my Frozen fans out there, thank you for the suggestions. These two sisters were a lot of fun to do. I'm really excited with how they turned out. I'm excited to do more Disney princesses, so if there is a Disney princess that you would like to see, please post that in the comments below. I'm currently working on Tiana. I'm really excited about her, and I would love to hear what your suggestions are. If you haven't already subscribed, please do. That would be awesome. And if you enjoyed this tutorial, give it a thumbs up. As always, thank you guys so much for your support. Please check out some of my other tutorials on my YouTube channel. I have other fairy dolls as well as other craft ideas, bath bombs, soaping, all sorts of fun things. If you decide to recreate this doll, I would love to see pictures. You can share those with the hashtag untidyartistfairydoll on Instagram, or you can send them to me through Facebook. You can find my Facebook page is Untidy Artist. Thank you so much for all of your support, your kind words, and we will see you guys next time.